Hey guys, welcome back to Chapter 1 and Beyond. I am excited about this episode because, as I've hinted from my last episode, I have changed my mind on how I'm approaching HRCYED 3.0 and my plans for HRCYED 3.0. So I did a little bit more research, and I feel like, honestly, with the new version called Ain't Got Nothing But Time, or Ain't Something Time. Wow. I can't talk today. So, yeah, so I mean, the Ain't Nobody Got Time version, I am going in approaching that I'm going to try to just do at least the one book per the 25 prompts. Whereas before, they didn't really have this version, and I was super stressed out and overwhelmed, and I ended up eventually failing last year's HRCYED challenge. So, if you don't know what HRCYED is, it is the hardest reading challenge you'll ever do. Every year, at least the last 3 years, Cordy has done a phenomenal job with creating these very unique reading prompts. And basically what it is it's a bingo board that you have to black out if you play the normal version. Whereas this year, she's introducing a lot of customization and the ability of just participating. If you fulfill each of the prompts with at least one book, you would be doing the Ain't Nobody Got Time version. She does have a gamified version, and I will mention a link in the description to her announcement where you can find all those details. So, but what I did was I looked at each of the prompts, and I personally went through what was on my want to read list, my physical reads, and tried to find the closest match to what, was available for these specific reading prompts. So I'm going to go in rapid, style order, if you will. I'm not going to get too in depth with why I picked these books for each of these prompts, but I'm going to give you a description of each of the prompts as we come along to it, and then mention the titles and the authors that I am kind of substituting in as a to be read list to fulfill these prompts. And then I will also mention too whether these are coming from the library or the physical reads that I currently own right now. The reason why I had changed my mind was because this reading challenge really did kind of broaden my reading taste, and it's just honestly a good way to kind of have a preemptive list for an entire year. And honestly, I'm kind of going in this year okay, well, how much of my physical TBR can I really conquer through? So, and I'm kind of taking it in that approach, where it's way less stress, and just more so of just being able to have a little bit more fun with this. But I'm really digging the reading prompts that she has on this bingo board, and just really excited about this. So the first reading prompt that I want to mention is the choose your party. So the way that this one works is really think about role-playing games and D&D, which I absolutely love, by the way. So think about rogues, sorcerers, druids, paladins, things like that. So the titles that I had picked for this particular prompt is Air of Fire by Sarah J. Maas, Ordinary Monsters by J. M. Muro, The Gate of the Feral Gods by Matt Dinneman, So Let Them Burn by Kamala Cole, In the Parable of the Sower by Octavia E. Butler. So of these titles, I do physically own every single one, so these will all be fulfilled by my physical TBR. For the next reading prompt, so this is number 2 of 25, is called the periodic table. So basically with this particular reading prompt, you want to pick 5 titles that have a periodic table element in the title. So the 2 that I physically own are Chain of Gold by Cassandra Clare and Chain of Iron by Cassandra Clare. The next 3 are going to be what I will pull from my library TBR, and that is Mercury by Amy Jo Burns, Silver Elite by Danny Francis, and The Tin Drum by Gunter Grass. So those, if I end up reading all of those, it will fulfill that prompt. The next reading prompt that is on the bingo board is called familial terms. So this is anything with in the title that has like mother, daughter, son, aunt, uncle, grandmother, so forth. The titles that I selected was The Mother Code by Carol Stivers, Daughter of the Moon Goddess by Sue Lynn Tan, My Grandmother Asked Me to Tell You She's Sorry by Frederick Backman, The Clockmaker's Daughter by Kate Morden, and Son of a Witch by Gregory Maguire. Of those titles, I do physically own Daughter of the Moon Goddess and Son of a Witch by Gregory Maguire, so those will come off of my physical TBR while the others will come from the library. The next prompt is called Regional Books, and this is kind of expanding on last year's prompt where you kind of had to read around the world. This one like allows you to kind of explore even further in depth, like different regions. In light of, the recovery efforts that have been happening in Venezuela, I chose to pick all the surrounding regions and cities of Venezuela for this specific prompt because I've always, like, even before the earthquake, I feel like it's a nod to that, but like to all the survivor efforts of recovering and like, recuperating. But I mean, even before that, I was very interested in the Venezuelan and even Brazil and just like kind of branching more. So I do own Woven in Moonlight by Isabel Ibanez. So that one is also going to fulfill this prompt. I have The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho. I have 100 Years of Solitude by Gabriel Garcia Marquez, The Night by Rodrigo Blanco Calderon, and then Doña Barbara by oh my gosh, these names. Romolo Gallegos. Gallegos. I'm so sorry. So those will come from my library, while Woven in Moonlight will come off of my physical shelf. But I feel like because they like cover different regions and areas of Venezuela, I feel like honestly this is a good fit, and it, just I'm really thinking of all the people in those areas that are affected by those earthquakes and even the after effects of it. And my heart breaks like seeing the footage that comes out of there, and just like so much devastation with that. So I really am thinking of everybody in that area. So all right, so the next prompt is called the Food Pyramid. In this prompt, like, you are going to select titles that encompass different types of food. So like proteins, grains, fruits, vegetables, things like that. So these titles that I do currently have, I'm kind of on the fence because I feel like a few of them kind of like combat with each other, because I technically have 2 books with covers that have beverages on the front. And then I have 2 titles on this list that kind of have sweets and desserts. So I kind of have to rethink this particular prompt, but for now I do have A Magic Steeped in Poison by Judy Lynn, Legends and Lattes by Travis Baldry, The Chocolate Touch by Patrick Skane Catling, The Berry Pickers by Amanda Peters, and The Cinnamon Bun Bookstore by Lori Gilmore. And then of those titles, I only have The Chocolate Touch currently on my physical shelf. So, I mean, a lot of this prompt is like literally going to come from the library if I choose to do a hybrid of the standard or the, gamified version. I don't know. At this point, I'm just kind of going in that I'm going to do the, the Ain't Nobody Got Time version. Because then I'll just knock off all the ones I physically own, and then I'll feel really happy and content with that. All right, so this next one is called Road Trip, and this one encompasses storylines that have like states from the US or other regions. So like if you pick Canada, it like goes over the provinces in Canada instead of like those major ones, which that really didn't just make any sense at all. But what you're supposed to do with this specific prompt, if you stick with the US, you cannot use like Canada or New York or major metropolitan like things, because it just gets overbearing and overran by the publishing company. So like the way that they want you to approach this particular prompt is by looking at states like Wisconsin, Missouri, North Carolina, Illinois, Ohio, Kentucky, things like that. So the story has to take place or mention some sort of state that is not a major, like California or New York. So the ones that I picked, and these are all physically coming off of my physical TBR, is Fairy Tale by Stephen King, Summer Island by Kristen Hanna, The Queen's Gambit by Walter Tevis, This Tender Land by William Kent Kruger, and The Wicked Deep by Shay Earnshaw. So those ones will be, on my TBR to fulfill that road trip prompt. The next one on this list is actually another one that will fully fulfill coming off of my physical TBR. It is called Second Chances and Hidden Gems. So this one is like encompassed around soft DNFs. So at some shape or form, I had soft DNF'd and I eventually would get around to it. This is my opportunity to do that. So these titles are The Queen's Gambit by Walter Tevis, The Witch's Heart by Genevieve Gornichek, The Wicked Deep by Shay Earnshaw, The Wild Huntress by Emily Lloyd Jones, and Babel by Arv Kwong. So those are the ones that I do plan to get to. And as I'm getting into these prompts in later episodes, I do plan to give you guys a little bit more detail of what the books are and why I felt that these fulfilled this prompt. But that'll be like completely separate videos or episodes, videos. If you're watching on YouTube, it would definitely come up as a video. So if you're visiting on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, obviously it'll be an episode for you. So okay, so this next reading prompt on the bingo board is called Cover Styles. So the idea of this is just looking at different cover styles. So whether it features a person or it does typography or it's a landscape, like things like that. I physically thought it made sense since most of the cover styles on my shelf had encompassed a person. So I'm going with that route. So Air of Fire by Sarah J. Maas, Bravely by Maggie Steffvader, Skyward by Brandon Sanderson, and The Infinity Quartz by Akemi Dawn Bowman. So yeah, those are the ones that I'm planning on reading. They're all coming off of my physical shelf. It's a fantastic day. All right, so this next one is called Backlist Authors. So basically with this reading prompt, I had to look at my favorite authors and look at the books that I haven't read from my favorite authors and add that to my list. And great thing about this is that I had a lot of like backlist authors on my physical shelf. So all of these are physically coming off of my physical TBR, which is awesome. And those titles are The Bones Beneath My Skin by T.J. Klune, Words of Radiance by Brandon Sanderson, A Journey to the Center of the Earth by Jules Verne, Steel Striker by Marie Lu, and The King of Crows by Libba Bray. So, as much as I'm nervous about going into the final of the Diviner series and even the final of the duology for, Marie Lu, I'm really excited about being able to chip off more off of my TBR, especially with some of these great authors. I know, like, even Words of Radiance, I'm very intimidated by the size of this book, but it has to get done. I really love Stormlight Archive, so I feel like it just makes the most sense. Okay, so this next one is kind of like a lot more books, so I'm just gonna rapid fire go down the list, but the idea of this particular reading prompt, it's called titular counting. So basically, the title of, like, you have to look at how many words are in the title. So the first title has to have one word, the next one has to have two, the third one obviously three, and so forth. So I have to count how many words are in the title and like kind of put those in order. So for the titles that I selected for this reading prompt are Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier, Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros, One Dark Window by Rachel Gillig, So Let Them Burn by Kamala Cole, The Bones Beneath My Skin by TJ Klune, The Priory of the Orange Tree by Samantha Shannon, To Sleep in a Sea of Stars by Christopher Paolini, The House with a Clock in Its Walls by John Belaris, My Grandmother Asked Me to Tell You She's Sorry by Frederick Backman, and then finally The Girl Who Circumnavigated Fairyland in a Ship of Her Own Making by Catherine M. Valente. So the first 7 in this list are coming from my physical TBR. The remaining 3 that are in this list are coming from the library. So once I get to this prompt, because I think the way I'm going to approach it is I'm going to take it prompt by prompt, unless like I can double up titles, because that is one of the amazing things about this particular reading challenge is that you can double up. So yes, there is a possible need of 150 books, but if you can double it up perfectly, you only end up needing 75 books to fulfill this entire challenge. But I think like how I'm going to do it is just, prompt by prompt and go from there. So, all right. So this next reading prompt is actually one that I started challenging myself on this podcast. It's called the Shiratori titles. So you guys, if you haven't checked out that episode, please go check it out, because I'm not really going to get into grave detail of how this works, but, basically I have to look at the titles, look at the character, and then chain them together. So the first title that I'm going to be conquering through for this particular reading prompt is The Parable of the Sower by Octavia E. Butler. The second is Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier, Ash Princess by Laura Sebastian, Skyward by Brandon Sanderson, and then Damsel by Evelyn Skye. Those are the 5 that I could fulfill with this particular prompt, and we'll be good to go. So the next prompt is the weather. So it has to like kind of encompass some kind of weather element on the cover. The titles that I was able to pick straight from my physical TBR for this one is This Ends in Embers by Camilla Cole. Sorry, I keep mispronouncing her name. Like I say Kamala. I got to figure out what the actual like pronunciation is. It's driving me nuts. The second is Chain of Iron by Cassandra Clare. The Name of the Wind by Patrick Rothfuss. Curious Tides by Pascal Lascelles. Stranger Skies by Pascal Lascelles. And then Girls of Storm and Shadow by Natasha Nang. So if you go check out those titles, you kind of see like the different weather elements that, how I've interpreted it. Okay, so for these next 2, they're actually a little bit shorter of like reading prompts, so I just figure I just mention them now. One of the reading prompts only requires 2 books, the other one will require 3 books. So book within a book, this one is pretty self-explanatory. You pretty much pick a book that will mention another book, and then you read both of them. So I ended up picking The Air Affair by Jasper Fforde, and then obviously it mentions Jane Eyre in the book. So I picked Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte for the second book. So that one's pretty, self-explanatory. And I'm really excited because I do physically own Jane Eyre, and I've been wanting to get to that book. So perfect opportunity for that. This next reading prompt, like I mentioned, it has 3 for fulfilling this prompt. It is Characters Become Authors. So the point of this one is to pick a book that has a main character. The first name of the character should match with an author, and then you read that book, and then you go back and you find another book that has the main character with the same first name. So I picked Alice. Ordinary Monsters by J.M. Muro has a main character called Alice. So I ended up going with Alice, which will chain with Practical Magic by Alice Hoffman, which then will chain with Alice by Christina Henry, which is a Alice in Wonderland horror retelling, and I'm here for it. It sounds absolutely fantastic. So yeah, and I do own Ordinary Monsters by J.M. Muro, so the rest of them will have to come from the library. All right, so numeral titles. This one, it has to mention the word of the number in the title. So the titles that I have are One Dark Window by Rachel Gillig, Two Twisted Crowns by Rachel Gillig, 3-Day Road by Joseph Boyden, Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yaros, The Five Dysfunctions of a Team by Patrick Lencioni, Six of Crows by Lee Bardugo, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen R. Covey, The 8 Mountains by Paulo Cognetti, 9 Perfect Strangers by Leanne Morardi, 10 Arguments for Deleting Your Social Media Accounts Right Now by Jaron Lanier, The 13th Tale by Diane Setterfield. And of those titles, I do own Six of Crows, Fourth Wing, One Dark Window, and Two Twisted Crowns. So of those titles, those 4 will come from my physical TBR, and the rest of them will come from the library. Actually, no, Six of Crows also comes. So there's about 4 that will be from my physical TBR. Okay, so the next prompt is called Rainbow of Fonts. So it has to mention the color word in the title. So last year it was just, it had to feature the color of the cover style. This year they take it a step further and you have to have the actual word in the title. So I picked The Priory of the Orange Tree by Samantha Shannon, Chain of Gold by Cassandra Clare, Silver Elite by Danny Francis, Black Sun by Rebecca Roanhorse, White Fragility by Robin DiAngelo, The Pink Hotel by Liz K. Jacobs, The Color Purple by Alice Walker, The Deep Blue Between by Ayesha Harana Atta, The Green Mile by Stephen King, Yellowface by Arv Kwong, The Red Pyramid by Rick Riordan. I do physically own Chain of Gold by Cassandra Clare and The Priory of the Orange Tree by Samantha Shannon. So those are the only 2 from this prompt that will come from my physical TBR. Everything else will come from the library. This next reading prompt, and I know I'm going super, super fast, but I'm trying to keep this fairly short because I actually have attempted to re-record this. It's been recorded a few times and the first run was like an hour and 20 minutes. I definitely know you guys don't have time to sit here and listen to me talk about these titles for that long. So I am doing this rapidly fast, but honestly, you're starting to get the idea of how this is, you know, a way that you could strategize to tick off as much as possible from your physical TBR backlog. Even your want to read list. Look at your want to read list. Like, go to the library. Like, don't go out and buy all these books. So, this next reading prompt is taxonomic animals. So, pretty much like embodying on the cover like different animals from different animal kingdoms. So this one, you know, I was able to fulfill quite a few off of my physical TBR, while some will have to come from the library. So I have Six of Crows by Lee Bardugo, Serpent and Dove by Shelby Morin, The Gate of the Feral Gods by Matt Dinneman, Woven in Moonlight by Isabella Banez, Flowers of Algernon by Daniel Keyes, and then Remarkably Bright Creatures by Shelby Van Pelt. So, obviously one encompasses an octopus, one a mouse, one a badger, or other wildlife creatures. The Gate of the Feral Gods, obviously Princess Donut. We can't leave her out. Six of Crows, a bird, and then Serpent and Dove is pretty much a reptile. So yeah. So that one does cover everything. Okay. So we're on the last row of, prompts here, but there are some pretty heavy hitters as I get into this. So this next reading prompt that's on the bingo board is biomes and landscapes. So this is just looking at the cover and encompassing different cityscapes or countryside or deciduous versus carnivorous and like things like that. So the titles I selected were Babel by R.F. Kuang, This Tender Land by William Kent Kruger, A Light Too Bright by Samuel Miller, The Name of the Wind by Patrick Rothfuss, The Floating World by Axio, and then Uprooted by Naomi Novik. And of those titles, the only one that is going to be coming from the library is Uprooted by Naomi Novik. The rest of them are coming off of my physical TBR. So, yay. This next one is all about the retellings. It's called Remix. So looking at adaptations and retellings of another story. So this first one is The Adventures of Amina al-Sarafi by Shannon Chakraborty. This was inspired by Sinbad, so I have that one on my shelf. Wicked by Gregory Maguire. Obviously retelling and kind of a spin off of the villain from Wizard of Oz. We have Between Burning Worlds by Jessica Brody and Joanne Rendell. This is the retelling of Les Mis that I've been ranting and raving about on this podcast. Totally, please go check it out. It is so good. I've been like saying up and down that I'm going to get to this second book and I just have to get to it. So that's why it has been put pretty high on the list to get to. And I really, really do want to get to it. The next one is Bravely by Maggie Steffvader. This is the retelling of Merida. And then finally, A Spindle Splintered by Alex E. Harrow. This is a Beauty in the, I think a Sleeping Beauty or Beauty, some kind of beauty retelling. Alex E. Harrow is fantastic. So I absolutely had to get another book of hers on this list. So that one is going to come from the library, while the other 4 that are in this prompt are coming off of my physical TBR. So, all right. So this next one is called HRCYED Mashup. So basically the premise around this particular prompt is to look at the bingo board from 1.0 and look at the bingo board from 2.0 and then take 2 prompts that are kind of, they're not the same. Because I know like with 1.0 and 2.0, they had some that expanded or like made more sense. Like the new releases, you can't mix with the other new releases that were on the first, bingo board versus second. So for this one, I actually picked the reading prompt of 1.0 of classics with the 2.0 version of By the Hundreds. So I only have to do, since By the Hundreds went up to like 7 or 8 books or whatever, I only have to do the first 5. So 100 to 199 has to be a classic. 200 to 299 has to be another classic. 300 pages to 399 pages has to be a classic. You get the drill, but it has to be like different titles, and it has to fall within the By the Hundreds. So the first one that I picked is The Stranger Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde by Robert Louis Stevenson. This will be my 100 to 199 pick. And this one will be the only one that's coming from the library. The rest of these titles will be coming off of my physical TBR. The second is Sense and Sensibility by Jane Austen. The third is A Journey to the Center of the Earth by Jules Verne. Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte. And then finally, Invisible Man by Ralph Ellison. So I'm really excited about this because I've been on this huge kick with like classics and everything. So I really am excited to kind of dive into this one. All right, so this next reading prompt is called Choose Your Curriculum. So the basics of this particular reading prompt is, imagine that you're going back to school, you pick a subject that it kind of embodies, and then you pick books based off of that curriculum subject. So I ended up picking, probably not obvious, but it's something in technology or computer science. So I ended up picking, like, for the prompts that I kind of felt matched closely with computer science and technology, anything that embodied like programming or robotics or AI or something like that or another. So the first 2 titles will be coming from the library, while the remaining 3 will be coming off of my physical TBR, which is great because I was very close to having all of my sci-fi reads completely off of my list. So I only had a few more titles left to kind of round out all of my sci-fi picks off of my physical TBR. So very happy about this because at least this prompt will help me get through that part. So the first title is called The Mother Code by Carol Stivers. Second is Clara in the Sun by Kazu Ishiguro. The Synapse Sequence by Daniel Godfrey. And then finally, we have the Infinity Quartz by Kemi Dawn Bowman and Girl Gone Viral by Arvind Ahmadi. So, yeah. So those last 3, like I said, will come off of my physical TBR. All right. So this next reading prompt is called It's Your Birthday. So it's going to like talk about all the different elements of what makes, you. So pretty much like any book that was published within your month birthday tree, which, believe it or not, I didn't know this. There's actual trees assigned, like zodiac signs, things like that. And then like obviously looking at your birthstone or, other elements like flowers and things like that. So each of these will kind of embody a certain element of that. A lot of these titles are going to be coming from the library, so I'm probably not going to be very enticed to like finish this one, but you never know. But at least I have a preemptive list to work with here. So okay, so the first title is A Magic Steeped in Poison by Judy Lin. The second is Where the Crawdads Sing by Delia Owens. The next one is Through the Looking Glass by Lewis Carroll. This is like the second in the Alice in Wonderland series. The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe by C.S. Lewis. Uprooted by Naomi Novik. Go Set a Watchman by Harper Lee. And then finally, The Ruby in the Smoke by Philip Pullman. So that one will fulfill that prompt. The next one, and I believe we only have like 3 more reading prompts, so we're getting there, guys. All right, so this next one is called Pocket Monster Acquisition. Pretty much like to avoid copyright infringement. It's pretty much a Pokemon matching like title, like, reading prompt. It's pretty cool. So looking at the types of Pokemon and trying to match it up with like different elements of that is the name of the game of this one. And this one actually comes physically off of my TBR, which is awesome. So we have Between Burning Worlds by Jessica Brody and Joanne Rendell, Iron Flame by Rebecca Yaros, Serpent and Dove by Shelby Marin. I have Steel Striker by Marie Lu, and then The Witch's Heart by Genevieve Gornichek. So obviously I was thinking Serpent and Dove, kind of like that, fighting, I can't form sentences today. Iron Flame, I was thinking the fire elements, so like Charmander and things like that. Between Burning Worlds, I was like thinking on the lines of like, the dark elements and things like that. Steel Striker, I was thinking of like the steel or the metal class type Pokemon. And then the Witch's Heart is more of like the magical bound type, like Psyduck and things like that. So it probably doesn't directly match, but I felt like it honestly I felt like it kind of went with each one. So, all right. So the second to last one that I have here is called An Anthology of Authors. So the idea of this, and actually I've never, this is going to be a first for me. I've never read an anthology ever in my life. I didn't even know this even existed, but pretty much it's a collection of like short stories that are contributed by a set of authors, and it like kind of gets built up together. So I guess I have to read an anthology, and then each of the authors that are debuted and mentioned in that contributed to this anthology, I have to go and read one of their books. So I do have Unfettered by Sean Speakman, which will introduce Brandon Sanderson, Joe Abercrombie, Naomi Novik, Lev Grossman, Patrick Rothfuss, and Terry Brooks. So of those titles that I picked of each of these authors, I picked Words of Radiance by Brandon Sanderson, A Little Hatred by Joe Abercrombie, Spinning Silver by Naomi Novik, The Magicians by Lev Grossman, The Wise Men's Fear by Patrick Rothfuss, Hook by Terry Brooks. So, and of these titles, two of them will be physically be coming off of my physical TBR, which is Words of Radiance and A Little Hatred. The rest of them will have to come from the library. So yeah. All right, finally, we have All Those Secret Prompts. So last year in HRCYED 2.0, there was a series of secret prompts that I did not partake in because I was too stressed out with trying to figure out which titles could fulfill off the bingo board. So this one has about 12 different prompts, and I have to pick like specific books that will fulfill that prompt that are listed. So with this one, I get to do all 12 if I really want to. So the first prompt that is on this list is fulfills first and last name in title prompt. So I ended up doubling up and did Danye Barbara by Romolo Gallegos. Oh my gosh. The second prompt that I picked, the second prompt in this list is two different books, but the same title. I did not know this was a thing, but after researching and, even chatting with ChatGPT, I found this is like a legit thing. Like, you legally can do this. So it's two different books with the same title. And I picked Wonderland by Jennifer Hillier, which is like this psychological thriller of a amusement park, and it's got like hidden secrets and things. But apparently another book is like a romance, and it's the same title. So I did double check that. Okay, so the next prompt in this specific reading prompt is cover that features motion. Sorry. So like I honestly was looking at the weather and the biomes, like biomes and landscapes, like prompt for doubling up on this one. So I ended up doing Curious Tides by Pascal Lassalle because it pretty much encompasses like motion of like waves. So I was like, that one works. This next prompt that's on this specific reading prompt, it's so hard to like describe this, but this one is Miss Childhood Chapter Book. So any chapter books that I missed out on as a kid that I didn't get to read, I get to read that now. There's so many titles that I didn't get to read as a kid, but honestly, Aragon by Christopher Paolini makes the most sense. This is part of the Inheritance Cycle series, so I do physically own that book. So I am very, very excited to be able to tackle that one. All right, so this next prompt is either it has to encompass on the cover a craft of some sort on the cover design, or I have to listen to an audiobook and craft something while I'm listening to the audiobook. So I decided to go with the audiobook and craft something since I've been working on like a lot of inventory for my small business. And even like kind of crafting things for, like working on side projects. So I picked Black Sun by Rebecca Roanhorse. At least that's the plan, because I was able to get the audiobook through the Libby app. So that one will fulfill that one. And this next one, I really left this open to interpretation because this was really hard to find a single video on QWERTY's page in YouTube channel, like, because there was nothing. I I really don't know if I'm accurately like doing this particular one correctly. But the name of the prompt is called Joseph's Jacket Color in the Title. So I'm like thinking Joseph's Technicolor like code or something. I can't remember the exact title of that movie, or it's like a play on Broadway. But I'm thinking, okay, well, Technicolor is like a rainbow, so like I can pick anything from like rainbow colors. Since we had that color prompt, I just picked The Green Mile by Stephen King. I have no idea if this fully fulfills that, but at least, it's open for interpretation at this point. So, if anybody can help me locate where these secret prompt like videos are on Cordy's channel, that would be fantastic, because like I can't find them. So some of these I really am open for interpretation on how these are supposed to work. So yeah. All right, the next one is called Last Name is a First Name. So this one was pretty easy to fulfill off of my physical TBR. I ended up picking Summer Island by Kristen Hanna, because basically how I interpreted this is literally the author's last name could be a first name. So Kristen Hanna is also like Hannah's a first name. So that's how I interpreted that one. So hopefully that's right, but that's what I'm planning on doing, and it's coming off of my physical TBR. Most recent acquisition, I interpreted this as this was the latest book that I had purchased, that I had acquired onto my physical TBR, which is awesome, because like I did put myself on a book buying ban, and this is the last physical book that I had purchased until I put myself on that book buying ban. And it's called Bloodbound by Ellis Hunter. So I ended up getting the special edition one. So I was really excited about that. Okay, we only got a few more, so I'm just rapid fire going through this. This next one is called Pun in the Title. So I picked Legends and Lattes by Travis Baldree, because I feel like it's a pun off of Ladies and Lattes. I don't know if that's a pun, but I'm interpreting it as that, so that's what I'm going off of. The next one is called Read a Whole Book Outside. So I was like really thinking about titles that I would really enjoy just going to the park or outside in the backyard with the kids, and one that I could easily attain like getting through entirely outside. So I picked The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe by C.S. Lewis. I figured this is probably the most close to what I can accomplish, because it's a kid's read, and it's short. It's not that long. Many of these titles are like 300 plus pages. So I'm like, maybe Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde could also be fulfilled outside too. But for right now, I'm kind of penciling in The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe for this one. The next one is the Doom Scroll Your Read. I could not find the video once again on how this one's supposed to work. I assumed based off of how I doom scrolled off of Facebook or TikTok or BookTube. However, I just picked the first title that I see and I end up reading it. Lucky for me, I ended up being able to double up on another prompt with this one. So I ended up getting Clara and the Sun by Kazu Ishiguro. I know a lot of people are talking about Clara and the Sun because of Jenna Ortega's new release that's coming out in regards to this. So she did a movie adaptation, and she ends up being Clara in that movie. So I'm pretty excited, and this gives me the ability of like, reading something more of Kazu Ishiguro, which is, he was fantastic with Never Let Me Go. So I'm really anxious to pick this one up, even though it's going to be coming from the library. And then a book from I'll Get Around to It tag. I couldn't find the video. I don't know what I'm looking for. So this one is blank right now, but honestly, I'm probably just going to end up picking a book off of this already long existing TBR and just double up on something and call it a day. Because like I don't know where any of these videos are, so I'm pretty, I feel bummed out that I can't find them, but I have a feeling they were like deleted afterwards, or they're hidden on her channel and I just haven't found them yet. But yeah, so This was quite a lengthy list. I apologize, guys, but thank you for sticking it out all the way through. So like to fulfill a normal version of HRCYED 3.0, there's total books needed 150. I did start this reading challenge on July 1st. And I will be giving you guys like updates once a month on how my progress is going with this and how I felt that each of these prompts like really fit that. So yeah. So basically, if you want to go check this reading challenge out, I will leave a link in the description below to Cordy's announcement. There is a Google form that you have to fill out, and then there's a website too that she guides you to that will have the full details of how to play, how to get the bingo cards, and all that stuff. But I really appreciate you guys supporting this podcast. And until next time, guys, I will talk to you in the next episode. Take care. Bye.